Welcome back to TitanTigers.com, the best part of the show where there's no Auburn, the show where there's no chance. And I'm not just saying that because I don't like Auburn or I don't like Chance. It's because I'm sitting here and, of course, Chance just missed another viral moment. One of the lights at Studio G just came crashing down on my head. And I was like, hey, if I took the shot, at least he got it on camera. And, of course, he's not recording. Should have known we're going to miss another viral moment. But don't worry, I'm okay. I'm okay. Who's not okay is Alabama. Crushing blow. We are not in the playoffs. And I'm actually shocked. I don't want to go on too much of a rant, but I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. It's ridiculous. You had teams like Indiana and SMU that don't even have a top 25 win. Granted, yes, SMU did go to their conference championship, but the ACC conference championship is like making the Conference USA championship these days. I just don't understand how they looked at these resumes. Yes, Oklahoma was a very bad loss. Yes, Vanderbilt was a very bad loss. But you can't look at the fact that Alabama beat 3 top 25 teams and Indiana and SMU meet 0. And that's what put Miami out because they didn't beat a top 25 team. I just think that what's the precedent of playing tough schedules? And I mean, SEC is always going to be a tough schedule, but like Clemson, Georgia, that's just not going to happen anymore. I mean, obviously Florida State, Georgia Tech, that's part of rivalry week. But if I'm a coach, I'm saying, hey, all they care about is wins and losses. Let's go play some weak teams and just get wins. Because that's obviously what matters to the committee. It's not about going and playing the toughest schedule, which absolutely should matter. So again, I just think they got it wrong. If anything, Bama should have gotten over Indiana. They played top 25 team all year and they lost. I mean, they have no resume whatsoever. And SMU, yes, they at least went to the conference championship game and played a great game. I would take SMU over Indiana, but even the bye situation, Arizona State and Boise getting byes, they're not even in the top 12. So just heartbreaking for Bama fans because I really think this team is one of the best teams in the country, and they just had some bad games on the road. But I was really looking forward to seeing Jalen and Ryan Williams and these guys play in the playoffs. But now, they're going to the Relia Quest Bowl, I believe it is, in Tampa. It's just such a 180 from what it was supposed to be. And again, a lot of things to go over here about the future of Alabama and just what this means for this season. But going into the bowl game, they'll play Michigan for like the third time in a bowl game. The 5th time. So they've had 4 matchups. 3 have been in bowl games. The series is 2-2. It's even. If you remember the great 1999 game against Tom Brady where they won in the Orange Bowl over the Sean Alexander Alabama Crimson Tide team, the missing of the extra point to lose the game. There was the Denard Robinson game, a lot of hype going into Michigan, first game of the year. Another one of those first games where Bama challenged themselves. Supposedly, Bama crushed them 35-16. There was another game that I thought, I've talked about before on Final Answer that really set the tone for Bama going forward in the future in bowl games. Bama was out of the playoff picture. They were out of the hunt to go, and yet this is in 2020, and yet all their starters still played in the bowl game. You saw that again with Bryce Young when they played Kansas State, but Jerry Jeudy went off that game against Michigan. Bama won 41-14. So then there was obviously last year's semifinal. One of the best games I've seen, competitive games. It wasn't high-flying like a USC or Texas game that was probably the best game of all time, but still a great football game. Michigan ended up winning that game in overtime, 27-20. Remember Milroe getting stopped on the 4th down. So Bama gets to play Michigan and get that revenge part. I can't wait to see. Hopefully all the players will play in the game. And, guys like Malachi could be it will be their last time in a Alabama uniform. Jalen's up for question, but playing Michigan in the Relia Quest Bowl in Tampa on December 31st, New Year's Eve, just not what we thought, but they get a shot to, take out some revenge on a Michigan team that just beat Ohio State. So this should be a game you should get up for, and there should be a little bit of revenge factor. So I expect a lot of good things from Alabama leading up to it, but just not what we wanted. But going into next year, you've already seen the transfer portal, people starting to leave, starting with Caleb Odom, Miles McVay, offensive lineman, and then Kendrick Law was the big one. I wanted to point this out. This is the first year, according to Rivals, who I still go by. I know there's On3 and 24/7. I still go by Rivals. This is the first year that Bama doesn't have a top 10 wide receiver in their recruiting class. Now you say, Brett, Ryan Williams was supposed to be in that class, but he moved up. Well, he did. Still, they don't have a top 10 wide receiver. This is the first time since 2020 that Bama doesn't have a top 10 wide receiver in their recruiting class. If you recall, I felt like what put Bama over the top is the years they had, starting with Amari and Ridley and Cooper. I'm sorry, not Amari, Ridley, Waddle, Devontae, Ruggs, Judy, Williams. All these guys are in the pros. And so that's what the guy that put the defense over the top, that really made the play that changed the game. Bama had that for so long. And it was really last year, the first year, they really just didn't have that guy. Burton made some good plays for them, but it was the first time Bama didn't have a guy that could just break it open over the top. And so now they have that with Ryan Williams, but they don't have that coming in next year. I know they got some Bernard coming back, but I want you to look at this. Of the top 10 wide receivers that Bama's had since 2020, Christian Leary, he's at Georgia Tech. Ja'Cory Brooks made the big play in the Iron Bowl a couple years ago. He's at Louisville. Shaz Preston, Tulane. Jalen Hall got hurt this year. 5 catches for 148 yards he had on the year. Aaron Anderson, LSU. Now Law's transferring. All these guys they've gotten since 2020, they combined for 5 catches for 148 yards. Why is Bama not keeping receivers anymore? Obviously they got Williams, and that's an unbelievable get. But that's something you need to look into, because I felt like towards the end of the year, that's what hurt Bama, was that, they weren't breaking it open over the top like they did against Georgia to win that game. So the wide receiver position is a very important position, and been a very important position for Alabama since Saban got Julio. And now that's just kind of been in question. So they need to figure out what's going on. Maybe they look to the portal. I know they got it, like I said, Bernard and Williams are a good little 1-2 punch going in next year, but that to me is a big question mark going forward. And the other big question mark is Jalen Milroe's future. Should he stay or should he go? Jalen's got another year he can come back. I think some people have projected him as a first-round pick. I would say probably a second or third-round pick. If Jalen comes back and has a big year, you've seen with guys like Bo Nix, with guys like Dylan Gabriel this year, it's pushed them into the first round. So, being an older veteran, I think Jalen would have a monster year and be the best returning quarterback outside of Lagway and Arch Manning. He'd be the veteran of the group. Those other guys are still very young. So, to me, I would say Jalen should come back, and I think he's going to come back. But I also think that there is going to be, it just seems like an uneasy relationship. And I just don't know how it's going to be the way Bama's season ended. And that'll end at the bowl game. So I think we'll find out a lot over the next couple of weeks about Jalen Milroe's future. On the bright side, Keelan Russell, 5-star from Duncanville, Texas, just got named the Gatorade Player of the Year. He is an unbelievable talent, an unbelievable quarterback. He's the quarterback Bama's been looking for since Bryce Young. No offense to Jalen, but he wasn't highly recruited as this guy and what Bryce Young were. So they do have the quarterback of the future coming, but again, you've seen with Lagway and some of the other guys, throwing these guys in as true freshmen, it's always a battle in the gauntlet of the SEC. Injuries come, whatever you may come. So like I said, I don't think Russell was ready. I would love for him to learn under Jalen for a year and then come in and be the guy as a redshirt freshman sophomore going forward. So a lot of question marks going forward. It's on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball, obviously losing Malachi. Lawson's coming back, after getting hurt. It's going to be it's going to be a completely different type team next year for Alabama. So this is make or break time for DeBoer. This is the first time since Bama's had 3 losses in a season since Greg McElroy's senior year. And that, to me, was a tough year to lose 3 losses. You had the loss to South Carolina, the Sandstorm game that everybody remembers. You had the loss in the comeback game, and you had a loss against LSU. So that's 3 tough losses. This year, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, not the same. So this is the first time since 2010 Bama's had 3 losses. Bama has not had 4 losses in a season since Nick Saban's first season. They went 7-6 and lost to Louisiana Monroe. So there is some give and take. So it would be interesting to see that Saban goes 7-6 and then Bama finished the season at 9-4. That would be very similar type first seasons. But DeBoer has to pick it up. Year 2 for Saban, they went to the SEC championship game and lost to Tebow. And then they won the national championship in year 3. Bama fans are not going to put up with a bunch of stuff for long. I like DeBoer. I think he's a great coach. Like I said, he's completely changing a lot of what the culture was around at Alabama. But you got to follow that up with wins. And I think when you follow that up with wins, you're going to see a big turn in the tide. But I think Milroe staying is a very key in that. They're going to offer him a lot of money. He may demand a lot of money. But I think if Jalen has a big year next year, he could push himself into a top 15 pick, especially with the quarterbacks coming out next year, which there's not really that many. You know, it's really the class after that with Lagway and Arch that a lot of people are looking towards. So again, I'm Milroe, I stay. But you have to be disappointed with the outcome and not getting into the playoff. But let's hope Bama makes the most of this at the end of the season and the practices leading up to the bowl game against Michigan and get some big-time revenge against Michigan in the ReLaQuest Bowl. Hopefully I'm saying that right here on Titan Tigers.